Hello, everybody. For this week, we are thinking about narrative and cognition, or narrative and thinking, and we're going to discuss how narrative is a thinking tool and how it affects our thinking. So one of the things that Tori Anderson says at the beginning of her article, the excerpts that we're reading, is that narrative is important for negotiating reality. Well, what do we mean by negotiating reality? So if I were to ask you, okay, tell me, what did you do this morning? You might say, well, I got out of bed, I made some coffee, and then I went on my computer to check my email. And I might say, wait, no, tell me everything you did this morning. And what would everything be? It would have to be something like, I opened my left eye, then my right eye. I moved my left pinky slightly. I slid my foot from the bed to the floor. I mean, you can go into an infinite amount of detail, and even more detail than I just gave. And we could be talking about what happens to your body at the molecular level. So whenever you tell a story, you select the significant elements out of background noise. So let's say that there's a story. My husband came home and smiled. We ate dinner together. I did the dishes, and then we watched TV. And this story really is just about a married man and woman coming home from work, having dinner, and watching TV. It's not a very exciting story. Now let's add some details. That's very abstract. So let's add some details to the story. My husband came home and smiled at me. It was 2 hours after he got off work, and he averted his eyes and kind of looked guilty. We ate dinner together. He was silent the whole time. He just answered with one word. I'd say, how was your day? And he'd say, fine. Then while I was doing the dishes, he went into his study, and I could hear his voice muffled, and it would get quiet and then kind of louder and then get quiet really quickly again. So then we're sitting there watching TV, and he turns off the TV and he says to me, I want a divorce. So notice that the second story has a whole lot of details, but those details have been recounted because the story ends differently than the first one. The first one just ends with him watching TV. The second one ends with him asking for a divorce. So the details that people pick out when they're telling a story only become significant in terms of what actually happens at the end. So you really are kind of negotiating reality because actually our lives never end. The story keeps going. So at different times, the story's different details in that story matter. And, AI, I have to tell you, cannot do narrative yet. And so what that looks like, really, is kind of stupidity. So here's an example. There are two people talking. Alexa's on, a mother and a father. They're in their living room. Alexa's on. They say, hey, our son got a job today. Oh, yeah, where? At Blue Baker. Oh, cool. I want to congratulate him. Where is he? And Alexa pipes in, Blue Baker, 201 Dominique Ave Drive, College Station. Would you like to call Blue Baker? So Alexa did not get the story. She heard the words son, at Blue Baker, where is he? And she responded. But she didn't get the story at all. So that makes her look stupid. Narrative is a form of intelligence. So this is really funny. Somebody goes into a diner and wants to order the chicken tenders basket and asks the waiter, hey, I have a gluten allergy. Can I get the basket that the chicken tenders come in gluten-free? Right? And notice this little receipt. He was charged 38 cents for asking a stupid question. But the thing is here, it's not a stupid question. She has just told herself a different story. She's told herself a story about a bread basket. She's told herself a different story about what the chef is doing. So our stories, our self-knowledge is built up out of these stories, but the stories change perpetually. Because as we go through life, different things become meaningful and different things become significant to us. It's like piecing together who you are by telling and retelling your stories. And this is where Ox and Caps come in. They say personal narratives shape how we attend to, how we pay attention to, and feel about events. They are partial representations and evocations of the world as we know it. They're always partial, just like getting up in the morning and telling me what you did exactly. Just like that always has to be a partial representation. Something is selected to recount and something is not. So the Milan Kundera, they quote as saying that Kundera despairs that memory never captures authentic experience. We immediately transform the present moment into its abstraction. We need only recount an episode we experienced a few hours ago. The dialogue contracts to a brief summary, the setting to a few general features. But remembering is not the negative of forgetting. Remembering is a form of forgetting. So you remember something as significant because you push all the other details away from it into the background. And here you can see an example, in photography. If the significant thing is the red bird, you can select it out of the background and make it the foreground and change the background. But later in your life, maybe it's the yellow and blue bird that's significant and the red bird isn't. And so you pull that out instead. We are always sorting through noise to make sense of sheer noise, to give it a shape. And that's narrative thinking. I always keep a journal, and I remember one time I was thinking, I miss my first boyfriend so much. I just really loved him, and I thought, hey, I'll read my journal. And I read through my journal, and it was filled with all these ways of trashing him and anger and all the fights we had. Now, I wouldn't want to say that what I wrote in my journal is the real story. That's the story I was definitely feeling then. The real story contains a part of it that comes from the forgetting of all those things, which is that I really cared about him. So both of those stories are true. I'm just remembering some things at one time and forgetting others, and at another time remembering other things and forgetting those first things. So as narratives are apprehended, and this is a paragraph in Caps and Ox, as narratives are apprehended, they give rise to the selves that apprehend them. Nobel laureate Toni Morrison noted, narrative is radical, creating us at the very moment it is being created. As narratives reach out to tap a pre-existing identity, they also construct a fluid, evolving identity in the making. That's Toni Morrison telling you that every time you tell a story, the same story, it doesn't come out the same, and you recreate yourself and your past and your life. And then Ox and Caps continue, spinning out their tellings through choice of words, degree of elaboration, attribution of causality and sequentiality, and the foregrounding and backgrounding of emotions, circumstances, and behavior. Out of doing all that, narrators build novel understandings of themselves and the world, new understandings. In this manner, selves evolve in the time frame of a single telling, as well as in the course of many tellings that eventually compose a life. Beautiful writing and wonderful idea. So read Ox and Caps about the temporality and point of view, two aspects of narrative thinking and storytelling in general. They also talk about the fact that all stories are split into two planes, the plane of the events and the plane of the consciousness. And of course, the consciousness changes how you feel about specific events, especially if the story has an ending you didn't anticipate. But the events change too, in the sense that those events that you pick out as significant change with your consciousness of the meaning of the story. The other thing that they point out is that we usually imagine self-knowledge as something that you seek on your own, maybe with the help of a higher power or with a therapist, but really pretty much it's a lone experience. And what they say is, no, self-knowledge comes from telling stories about your experience, and that experience is filled with other people and things happening to you and objects. And so your self-knowledge is not really a lone affair. It's about telling stories, and everything that's in them affects who you are.